Hey, this video, it's going to be for any solo entrepreneur if you're in the real estate niche. So it could be that you're a house flipper, a house wholesaler, or a land flipper. So that's who this channel is designed for. Is what we teach on this channel is how to bring on your first virtual assistant or even a team, how to have SOPs in place to train them. And this video specifically, I wanted to talk about finding A players, and so how to attract them and then hire and retain them, what that looks like. So this is a lot different than if you're trying to hire a small team. And let's say, for instance, that you're trying to hire a team of cold callers, and let's say you need 5 of them. So chances are you are not going to find 5 A players at one time. And also, from what I've seen, most people's budgets wouldn't allow for that. Now, there are going to be some that you can do commission with, and then you can, but it's going to depend on your budget. So if you are going to fall to the lower end of that budget, and let's say you're trying to find people for around $3 an hour, then chances are you're not going to have people with just tremendous amounts of experience and stuff like that, because those kinds of people are going to want commission, which isn't necessarily a problem. But again, it's going to depend on your company and what you're doing. Some people want to go after one deal, and that is a $50,000 to $100,000 profit type deal. And then there's going to be the house wholesaler that's tending towards the $10,000, $20,000 wholesale fees. And so then it's more of a turn and burn type of business operation. So when it comes to the A players, so let's say that you're trying to hire 1 or 2 key people. And this could be anything from data people. So it could be from data entry to data analysis. Could be for trying to find a generalist VA or even a transaction coordinator. There's a ton of people in real estate to where they are now realizing, hey, transaction coordinators exist, and it takes a huge load off your work. So one of the key things is that I'd kind of like you to walk away with is I had this thought today, and it's after your business has already started, in my opinion, the fastest way to success after that is by finding great people. So there's also a book, Dan Sullivan wrote it. It's called Who Not How. And the premise of the book is you're going to try to stop asking yourself all the time, how do I do this? And you're going to start asking yourself, who can do this? Because there's already people out there that are highly skilled, and they actually want to do what you don't want to do. And also they do what you would consider to be impossible or difficult. And so that's even more reason to try and find those people and then hire them. So also, if you're doing what we teach, it's always finding virtual assistants who are going to, of course, work remotely, and they're going to be in another country to where the currency change makes it to where you can pay them a really good living. But then for you being in the US, it is a fraction of what you could hire someone to do this for in the US. So think somewhere around $2 to $10 is pretty normal. But now obviously if we're talking about ace players, you're not going to be paying them $2 or $3 an hour, because they're already going to have years of experience, and it may be something to do with bonuses or commission, or it may be just a higher than average pay range. So after you ask yourself who can do this, and then you want to start trying to attract them, typically an A player is going to always want more pay than what is average. In fact, A players typically have gotten really good by being in a corporate environment, or from what I've experienced, they come from the corporate world, and the reason they get burnt out and tired is because they feel like they're not appreciated. They see their peers who are sometimes progressing faster than them in pay, and it's simply because that other person's been there longer, even though the real A player is actually doing better work and more work. They still can get sometimes less than an average worker. So it's the same thing that happens here in the US, but it's happening all around the world, of course, because these are everyday walks of life people. They just happen to live in another country like the Philippines or India or Venezuela, something like that. So you got to think, what what do you, as a business owner, what would you want and what would you not want to deal with? And typically, like us, we're all entrepreneurs. However, these people, since they work in a company, they are very entrepreneurial, except, it's like the saying, they're entrepreneurial. Like they're looking to work inside of a company to not have the stress of trying to run the company, because like we all know how stressful it is. And some people don't want that. So how do we attract and retain them? So we're going to allow them, number one of the big things for them is that they want to be paid usually what is fair in their mind, and I would agree with them. They want to be paid above average, and they are well worth it, because you could have someone producing 2 or 3 times what a bad employee might be producing. And so that's why it's so important to get them. Sometimes it could be even more than that if it requires soft skills. So like with sales, you could easily have someone closing triple or quadruple what someone who doesn't want to sell could potentially do. So keep those things in mind. It's not really that they cost more, because they can produce so much more output than someone who is like inferior on the skill level. So they also want autonomy. They want to be able to like work at their own pace. And like from what I've experienced, they really just want you to like show them, hey, this is like the objective. This is what we got to accomplish here. And then this is what a great output looks like. And then they know exactly how to work, and then they know what the expectation is. So that way they can like goal set themselves. And then at the end of the week or at the end of the project, they can just get back with you and let you know like what they did and all that kind of stuff. So think about like what would you want, and probably that's going to be exactly what they would want, because they can actually request things that a normal worker couldn't, just simply because they're that much better. So, I mean, in sales, that's like always famous for having the diva salesperson, but you can have those types of individuals in other areas, and it's like they're well worth, accommodating them with the other benefits and stuff at your company. So for the most part, all of our benefits are the same and everything, but you can be compensating them differently. And, with the autonomy and showing them that you trust them. So like at my company, I don't do the whole screen capture software, because a lot of A players are just like, no, I'm not dealing with that. And that's in every industry. Like here in the US, there's so many, for instance, truck drivers who are like, I don't want to be recorded every second of the day. And so those are the people that just go and buy their own trucks, so they don't have to deal with having cameras inside of their truck and outside of their truck and then recording audio all the time, because it feels like Big Brother is like watching over you the whole time. So keep that in mind. Like, yes, you can do that. And, people are doing that for the lower pay rates and like for entry level personnel and stuff. But typically the reason that business owners are doing that is because there's not a culture inside of their business. So like if there's no work culture and the workers don't feel trusted or anything at all, you're going to have to put those kinds of things in place, because now you're relying heavily on management. And like for the most part, nobody wants to be managed. Like they want to be led, and leading is totally different than trying to manage them. And that's why this conversation is different, because we're talking about 1 or 2 people. We're talking about small teams. We're not talking about trying to build, let's say a 10-person team overnight to where you don't actually know anybody, and you're having to just run them through the system and then see which people you have left over at the end. Totally different scenario. So when you're looking for these people, you also got to take into account like, okay, well, so they want more pay, and they want to be treated with like respect. They want to feel heard, and they just want to be trusted. They really want to be treated like above average human beings. And that is what like everyone wants in life anyways. So it's not hard to accommodate them. So I don't want you to think that it's like, oh wow, it's going to be hard to take on these people, because it really isn't. Especially if you've already committed to trying to build a company up that's different than everybody else. Because everyone always thinks to like market their business to try to find more customers, to find more real estate deals and stuff. However, you really need to look at all of the outreach that you're doing, like job posts and stuff, that is all marketing, but it's just to find workers to come in and help you to work on your big vision, the big picture stuff. And so you need to be committed to spending time and effort onto that, just like you're trying to do with your customers. Because think about it, if you put out a marketing campaign and it turns out to where all the leads are terrible, like for instance, there are people who financially have no need to sell their home or land or something. It's going to be totally different than if you go to people who are needing money in the moment or who can't fix up the house, so that way that leaves an opportunity for you to get the house so you can fix it up and remarket it. So it's the same way with trying to find workers. They're going to look at your job postings and know whether or not your business is something that they would even want to entertain an interview at. And they're going to see how you run your business by what your job post looks like. And also things like how fast you respond to them after they have applied for a position with your company. So now, like, what kinds of things, do they not want? It's like we've covered that in other videos, but it's like, not micromanaging them. An A player doesn't want to work with a bunch of C players. That is extremely true. So keep that in mind. If you're trying to bring on like 5 people and, it's just not a good dynamic, then that person won't stay with you. Like an A player wants to be next to a good business owner, and they can sense that when they work with you, and they can see your business policies, and they can see how you're treating everybody. And that's one of the ways that they're going to know as well. Because it's like you really do want to build a team, and there is a culture in there. And this is not like the theoretical type of stuff like sometimes you might hear on YouTube. This is like, do you have a hardworking culture? Do you have one to where they can raise their hand and say, hey, I'm literally having trouble this week. Could I have a meeting with you? I'm needing you to get me unstuck. Stuff like that, because they're not going to want to work with someone who's like, who's never offering to help them. I always make sure that I offer them resources. It's like, hey, can AI make your life faster? I found this resource. Could this other software help you? Let me know if you need it, and it's like I'll get it for you. And I always make sure that, like at the end of a meeting with them, I'll ask them, is there anything else you needed from me? And they might be like, no. And it'd be like, is there anything else I can do for you? Is there anything else like a resource or anything like that? And I just want to ask them something simple. It's just like me trying to be a human and show them empathy, because sometimes they are working on very hard tasks, especially the data analyst. They're conquering problems that are not easy to solve, even for them, because some of it's just difficult by nature. So it also goes back kind of like what we just now talked about with like the clear communication and expectations and stuff. You're really just trying to manage that kind of stuff while always keeping in your head that you need to tend towards leading them more than managing them. Most of the time, when people talk about managing, they're really talking about like the not good type of managing, which is really just like checking in on them, and then it's like in a bad negative way. Like they don't feel trusted, for instance. So it could be with the screen capture software, things like that. And a lot of times managers in the corporate world, there are unreasonable expectations. And so people do get tired of that. I talk to people in the US to where that's one of the big reasons they want to leave companies, is just because the company sets unrealistic expectations on the role. And so then they just like want to leave. And that's the same thing that I hear of in virtual assistants I've talked with. It's like basically, build me this house, but can you do it in a week or two? And oh, by the way, you're by yourself. It's crazy stuff like that, So, that's basically some kind of starting points and everything. And it's like, that definitely gets you started. If you got more questions, please leave me a comment, and also, subscribe or follow. And in the description here, under this video, there is another video that's over an hour long. You can watch it, and it literally goes where it's from start to finish of like, how do you attract, how do you, like, where are you going to go to find these virtual assistants, and then how do you onboard them, train them, and then work with them to make sure that they're successful at the end. It even covers things that you'll need to train them, such as like SOP creation, stuff like that. And I guarantee you it will help you out if you watch it. If you're a solo entrepreneur, you're in the real estate niche, it is definitely going to help you. Make sure, don't forget, leave me a comment if you got questions, something specific to cover, and it's like I'll try to make another video over that when I can. Thank you.